The stars had long forgotten humanity. For centuries, their name had faded into myths, whispered only in dark corners of the galaxy. The official records claimed that humans had been wiped out, an old species that failed to survive the chaos of the galactic wars. No remains, no survivors, just a memory lost in time. But tonight, the galaxy learned that history had been a lie. A distress signal, ancient in structure but disturbingly clear, pulsed through the void. It traveled faster than light, bypassing security networks and encoded relays, reaching the core worlds of the Galactic Senate. The message was short, yet its meaning shook those who read it. We are coming back. Panic spread through the political chambers. High-ranking officials gathered in secret meetings, their voices trembling with disbelief. It wasn't possible. Humans were extinct. The archives confirmed it. The council itself had ensured it. So how could a ghost from the past send such a chilling message? Admiral Karvik of the Zorak Dominion, a battle-scarred veteran who had fought in countless wars, scoffed at the idea. "This is a hoax," he growled, his mandibles clicking in irritation. "Some rogue species trying to stir old fears." His words were met with uneasy silence. Across the room, Senator Vekel, a high-ranking member of the Galactic Senate, tapped his claws against the metal table. "Hoax or not, someone out there wants us to believe humans are returning. We need to find out who sent this signal." The Senate wasted no time. A team of elite reconnaissance ships was dispatched to the source of the transmission, a barren system on the edge of the galaxy, where nothing had existed for over 1,000 years. The fleet approached cautiously, scanning for signs of life, of deception, of anything that could explain the impossible. Then they saw it. A ship, not just any ship, but a human vessel. It floated silently, its design unlike anything seen before. It wasn't old or abandoned. It was active. A deep black hull absorbed light, making it nearly invisible against the void. There were no visible weapons, no energy spikes, just a still, watching presence. The lead ship, commanded by Captain Vortil of the Yetheri species, attempted contact. "Unidentified vessel, state your origin and purpose. You are in restricted space under the jurisdiction of the Galactic Senate." There was no response. The fleet moved closer, scanning for life signs, trying to determine if this was some lost wreckage. But then the human ship powered up. A deep hum vibrated through the void, and in an instant, every system aboard the alien ship shut down. Weapons, shields, communications. Darkness swallowed them. Panic erupted among the crews. Technicians frantically worked to restore power, but their systems wouldn't respond. It was as if the human vessel had willed them into silence. Then a voice came through the darkness. Calm, cold, unmistakably human. "You wanted to erase us. Now you will remember." The fleet, helpless and blind, could do nothing as the human ship slowly turned and vanished into hyperspace. By the time the alien ships regained power, it was already too late. The message had been sent. Across the galaxy, every major power received a single transmission, a repeat of the first. "We are coming back." The Galactic Senate convened an emergency session, their chambers buzzing with fear and confusion. Some demanded an immediate military response, urging that this was a last remnant of a dead race trying to stir chaos. Others, however, were not so certain. "That ship disabled an entire fleet without firing a shot," Senator Vekel reminded them. "If this is just the beginning, we are not prepared for what comes next." The room fell into heavy silence, because deep down, they all knew the truth. The humans should have been extinct. Their destruction had been absolute, but something had gone wrong. Somehow, somewhere, they had survived. And now, after centuries in the dark, they had returned, not as victims, but as conquerors. The transmission spread like wildfire. Every major empire, every ruling faction, every warlord across the stars received the same chilling message. Some dismissed it as a trick, a ploy to cause unrest. But the more cautious leaders understood the terrifying truth. Something had been overlooked. Humans were not extinct. They had never been. The Galactic Senate held an emergency assembly. The massive chamber, usually filled with arrogant debates and political maneuvering, was now silent. A shadow of fear loomed over the gathered representatives. They had ruled without opposition for centuries, believing humanity to be nothing more than a ghost story. Now they faced the possibility that those ghosts had returned to claim their vengeance. High Chancellor Vorin, a towering figure from the Draken species, tapped his claws against the armrest of his floating seat. We must confirm the truth of this message. If humans still exist, we must assess their numbers and technological state. It is likely they are a dying remnant, trying to intimidate us with deception. General Siros of the Jernak Dominion leaned forward, his deep blue eyes narrowing. And if they are not a remnant, if they have rebuilt in exile, if they come not as beggars, but as conquerors. The room fell silent again. No one wanted to admit the possibility. The last war with humanity had been brutal, but the Senate had won. The humans had been wiped from existence, their homeworld shattered, their colonies burned. It had been absolute, hadn't it? The Senate ordered the deployment of an elite intelligence unit, veterans of war, spies trained to operate in the deepest voids of space. Their mission was clear: find the humans, confirm their strength, and, if necessary, eliminate them before they became a real threat. The squad, known as the Black Talons, consisted of 5 of the best operatives in the galaxy. They had infiltrated hostile territories, assassinated powerful warlords, and retrieved classified data from the most well-guarded vaults. But as they set off toward the location of the last human sighting, none of them could shake the feeling that this mission was different. Their stealth ship dropped out of hyperspace near the same system where the distress signal had originated. The scanners were at full capacity, searching for anything unusual. At first, there was nothing. Just empty space, a dead system. But then, the shadows moved. One of the operatives, a seasoned veteran named Ralvik, squinted at the readings. "There's something out there," he muttered. "I don't like this." Before he could say another word, the ship's systems flickered. The lights dimmed. Weapons powered down. Controls became unresponsive. It was happening again. A figure appeared on their view screen, standing aboard a ship unlike anything they had seen before. The humanoid silhouette was clad in an advanced pressure suit, its visor reflecting the cold void of space. When they spoke, their voice sent a chill through every operative on board. "You think you are hunting us? No, we have been hunting you." Panic spread through the Black Talons as they realized the truth too late. They had never been the predators. They had always been the prey. Word of the vanished reconnaissance team spread quickly. The Black Talons were the Senate's best operatives, ghosts in the void, assassins that never failed. Yet, they had been silenced without a trace. No distress call, no wreckage, nothing. It was as if they had never existed. Panic seeped into the highest levels of the Galactic Senate. The same leaders who once scoffed at humanity's name now whispered it with fear. The humans were not only back. They were prepared. They had planned this return with precision, and now they were making their presence known in a way no species could ignore. High Chancellor Vorin slammed his fist against the council table, his scaled knuckles cracking the polished stone. "This is unacceptable. We are the rulers of the galaxy, not them. I want every fleet mobilized, every system scanned. We will find them." But Admiral Xiros of the Jernak Dominion was not so confident. His species had been one of the first to fight against humanity in the ancient wars. He remembered the way humans fought, not with numbers, but with ruthless efficiency. Every time they had been cornered, they had found a way to break free. Every time they had been outgunned, they had adapted. And now, after centuries in the dark, they had returned. Before a decision could be made, a new message arrived. This time, it wasn't a simple transmission. It was a signal breach, a direct hack into the most secure networks of the Galactic Senate itself. No firewall stopped it. No security protocol even slowed it down. Within seconds, every screen, every holographic display, every personal console was overtaken by a single image, a planet. At first, many didn't recognize it, but for those who had studied the history of the last human war, the realization was terrifying. It was Earth, the homeworld that had been destroyed, or so they had believed. The image zoomed in, revealing towering cities of black steel, starports filled with sleek warships, and orbital stations that pulsed with energy. The world wasn't dead. It had never been dead. A voice, steady and cold, echoed across the entire Senate chamber. It was deep, controlled, and unmistakably human. You thought we were gone. You thought you had erased us from history, but we are still here. We have watched. We have prepared. And now, the image shifted. What appeared next turned every stomach in the room to ice. It was a fleet, rows upon rows of massive warships, larger than anything the Senate's forces had ever seen. Their hulls were covered in strange markings, symbols of vengeance. We are coming for what is ours. Then, the transmission cut. Silence filled the chamber. No one spoke. No one moved. Because at that moment, they all understood the truth. Humanity had not been wiped out. They had been waiting. And now, the galaxy would finally face their return. You said the Galactic Senate was in chaos. The revelation that Earth still existed, that humanity had not been erased, but had instead thrived in the shadows, sent shockwaves through every major empire. Fear gripped the rulers of the galaxy, for they had believed their reign to be absolute. They had thought the war centuries ago had ensured humanity's permanent extinction. But now, they knew the truth. Humans had not been hiding. They had been preparing. High Chancellor Vorin paced in his private chamber, his claws digging into his palm. He had ruled through war, diplomacy, and ruthless efficiency. Yet nothing in his long reign had shaken him like this. His advisors surrounded him, offering strategies, theories, excuses. They cannot match our numbers, one minister said, his voice trembling. Even if they have rebuilt, they are but a single species. The Galactic Armada spans thousands of worlds. They've hidden for too long. Another snapped. They have no allies. The other species will never side with them. Vorin turned to Admiral Cyros, the only one who had remained silent. The Jernak warrior had fought against humans firsthand. He knew them in ways the rest of the Senate did not. Speak, Admiral, Vorin commanded. Tell me this is not the threat it appears to be. Styros hesitated. Then, in a grave voice, he said, They are worse than we ever imagined. The room fell silent. Explain, Vorin demanded. Styros inhaled deeply. Humans do not fight like other species. They do not wage war for conquest or resources alone. When they go to war, they do not stop. They will burn entire fleets to ash. They will tear apart planets if they must. You think their isolation has made them weak. His blue eyes darkened. It has made them desperate. And desperation breeds monsters. Before Vorin could respond, an urgent transmission interrupted them. The screen flashed red. An emergency signal from the Outer Rim. It was an admiral from the Solari Dominion. His face was pale, his mandibles twitching in fear. Behind him, the bridge of his battleship was a scene of pure horror. Fires raged. Officers screamed. The sound of distant explosions shook the transmission. We engaged a single human warship, one ship. The admiral's voice cracked. It disabled our fleet in minutes. Our weapons did nothing. We had them outnumbered, outgunned, and yet static. The transmission cut out. Silence. Then another distress call. And another. Reports flooded in from the Outer Rim. A pattern emerged. The humans were not launching a full invasion. They were testing. Striking isolated fleets. Analyzing weaknesses. The Senate now understood. Humanity was not rushing into war blindly. They were hunting. High Chancellor Vorin clenched his fists. Summon the entire Galactic Armada. Every fleet, every warship, if they want war. He swallowed, forcing down the growing fear clawing at his chest. Then we will give them one. You said. The Galactic Armada gathered like never before. Hundreds of thousands of warships, from dreadnoughts to strike cruisers, assembled in the heart of Senate-controlled space. It was the largest military force ever united under one banner, a display of overwhelming might. Chancellor Vorin stood at the center of the War Council, his talons tapping against the command table. The air was thick with tension. Every species of the Senate had sent their finest, commanders, tacticians, warriors, but not a single soul in the room felt confident. Because no matter how many fleets they gathered, the reports remained the same. The humans were winning. A single ship here, another there. Every engagement ended the same way. The Senate's fleets were outmaneuvered, their ships disabled or outright destroyed. But there was something even more disturbing. Not a single human corpse had been recovered. No prisoners, no bodies floating in space. Every time a human ship was destroyed, its crew vanished. Escape pods were never found. Survivors were non-existent. What does it mean? One of the commanders demanded. How can they take losses and leave no trace? Admiral Cyros, his reptilian face grim, finally spoke. It means they are not losing. The council fell into stunned silence. They are withdrawing, not retreating. Cyros continued. Every battle, every skirmish, it's intentional. They strike, they learn, and then they disappear. They are gathering data, studying our strategies, and when they are ready, a chilling thought filled the room. Humanity's real attack had not yet begun. Just then, a priority alert blared through the chamber. The main screen flashed to life, displaying a live feed from one of the largest defense stations in the Outer Rim. The footage was grainy, chaotic. The station's crews screamed in confusion. Sensors failed. Weapons systems shut down. Their shields flickered uselessly as the darkness of space swallowed them. Then something emerged. A ship. No, a behemoth. It was unlike anything the Senate had ever seen. Sleek black metal, massive in scale, yet moving with terrifying grace. It bore no official markings, no identifiable insignia. Just one word burned into its hull in a language the entire galaxy understood. Vengeance. The War Council watched, frozen in horror, as the station's defenses crumbled in seconds. Plasma turrets overloaded and detonated. Hull plating buckled under unseen forces. There was no battle. There was only annihilation. And then, for the first time, a human face appeared on the screen. A man, clad in obsidian armor, stood on the bridge of the warship. His expression was unreadable, but his voice carried across space with absolute certainty. Your time is over. The feed cut. The defense station was gone. A cold dread filled the War Council. Humanity was not coming for peace. They were coming to end everything. Panic spread like wildfire across the Galactic Senate. The destruction of the Outer Rim defense station was not just a loss. It was a message. Humanity had revealed their strength, their technology, and their terrifying precision. And now, every senator, every warlord, every admiral knew. The real war was about to begin. High Chancellor Vorin clenched his claws against the command table, his mind racing. The ship, Vengeance, had torn through one of the most fortified stations in the galaxy without taking a single hit. It had moved like a predator, striking with cold efficiency before vanishing into the void. And worst of all, it was only one ship. How? A auxiliary senator hissed, her mandibles clicking in frustration. How can they be so powerful? We eradicated them. We crushed their fleets, destroyed their homeworld. This is impossible. Admiral Cyros, ever grim, spoke in a low voice. No, we thought we eradicated them. Instead, we merely ensured they would never be caught off guard again. The chamber fell silent. They have spent centuries preparing for this moment, As Iris continued, while we basked in our dominance, they evolved. While we fought petty wars, they perfected the art of destruction. A silence heavier than any in Senate history fell over the war room. Then a new alert flashed across the holoscreens. A transmission, not intercepted, but sent directly to them. The Senate's security systems were the most advanced in the galaxy, yet this message had slipped through their firewalls effortlessly. The screen flickered to life, revealing a woman standing on the bridge of another massive human warship. Unlike the man from before, her face was not hidden by armor. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held the weight of 1,000 battles. "This is Admiral Evelyn Rains of the Terran Remnant," she said, her voice steady. "To the rulers of the Galactic Senate, we are not here to negotiate." Every senator leaned forward. "You believed us extinct. You believed your war had ended us. But you were wrong. We survived, and we never forgot." She took a step forward, and the War Council could feel the sheer gravity of her presence. "For centuries, we watched, we learned, we built. You grew complacent, while we honed ourselves into the storm that will sweep you away." The screen zoomed out, revealing not one, not two, but dozens of ships behind her. Warships of unimaginable design, each one more advanced than the last. A fleet of ghosts, reborn from the ashes of old wars. And then came the final words. The words that sent a chill through the bones of every leader in the room. "You thought you won. You thought you erased us from history. But now," her voice dropped, deadly and cold, "we are history's reckoning." The transmission ended. Silence. Then, alarms blared across the capital. Humanity had already arrived. The Galactic Senate's capital world, Velthar Prime, had never seen war. It was the seat of power, the heart of the Senate's authority. Its skies were protected by the most advanced planetary defense network in history. Millions of automated turrets, orbital fortresses, and planetary shield arrays. No fleet had ever breached its defenses. But this was not just any fleet. The moment Admiral Evelyn Rains' transmission ended, the sky burned. Hundreds of dark, monolithic human warships descended from the void, appearing where there had been nothing before. No hyperspace distortions, no sensor warnings, just the sudden, terrifying reality of their arrival. Panic erupted in the Senate halls. Senators screamed for their fleets, for their guards, for anything that could stop the storm descending upon them. Chancellor Vorin barely had time to react before his tactical officers shouted over one another in blind terror. "Shields down. Weapons offline. We've lost control of the planetary defense grid." Vorin's blood ran cold. Impossible. But it wasn't. The humans had seized control of their entire planetary security network in seconds. Across Velthar Prime, defense cannons meant to repel entire armadas stood silent. The planet's shields, engineered to withstand sustained orbital bombardment, were powerless. And then, the bombardment began. But it was not the indiscriminate destruction the Senate had feared. No cities were leveled. No civilians were slaughtered. The humans struck only one target: the Senate itself. In the heart of the capital, the towering Hall of Governance, a structure that had stood for over 10,000 years, shook as precise kinetic strikes ripped through its foundation. The most secure building in the galaxy crumbled like sand. The Galactic Senate was falling. Inside, chaos erupted. Senators trampled one another in blind panic, their guards desperate to flee. But no escape shuttles launched, no emergency teleporters activated. The humans had ensured there was no escape. A loud impact echoed through the crumbling chamber, and Vorin turned in time to see the great doors blasted off their hinges. And then they walked in. The humans. Not just soldiers, warriors clad in black armor, moving with terrifying purpose. Their weapons hummed with restrained power, their visors glowing like the eyes of ancient specters. At their head stood Admiral Rains. She stepped forward, surveying the room like a judge passing final sentence. Silence fell. Not because the senators had nothing to say, but because they knew it no longer mattered. Then, in a voice that carried across the ruins of the chamber, she spoke. "Your empire ends today." The chamber lay in ruins. Smoke curled from the shattered pillars of the Senate Hall, and the once proud banners of the Galactic Council lay trampled beneath the boots of advancing Terran soldiers. The senators, those who still lived, huddled together like frightened animals. Gone were their arrogant words, their declarations of supremacy. In their eyes now was only fear. High Chancellor Vorin, battered and bloodied, stared at the imposing figure of Admiral Evelyn Rains. She stood amidst the destruction, her soldiers forming a silent, unyielding wall behind her. For centuries, the Senate had ruled without question. They had rewritten history, erased entire species, and believed themselves untouchable. But now they knew the truth. Humanity had returned, and they had come as conquerors. Admiral Rains took another step forward, her gaze sweeping over the broken chamber. "You thought yourselves gods," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. "You thought you could erase us from existence." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "But you only made us stronger. You made us relentless. You forged us into something far beyond what you could ever comprehend." Vorin clenched his claws. "You." He coughed, blood flecking his lips. "You can't destroy the Senate. You'll plunge the galaxy into chaos." Rains regarded him with cold amusement. "The galaxy is already in chaos. You just never felt it from your golden throne." She motioned to the soldiers behind her. One of them stepped forward, placing a small device onto the cracked marble floor. A holo display flickered to life. Across the galaxy, images played. Footage of the war. The forgotten colonies, now liberated. The slave worlds, freed from their chains. The proud banners of the Terran remnant rising over planets that had once belonged to them. The Senate's dominion was over. Rains folded her arms. "The people you ruled, the ones you crushed beneath your boots, they are free now, and they will never bow to you again." A silence stretched across the chamber. The senators, the warlords, the so-called rulers of the galaxy, they had nothing left. And then Rains spoke the words that sealed their fate. "Your empire is finished. Your rule is over. From this day forward, the Galactic Senate is no more." She turned to leave, her soldiers following. No mass executions, no slaughter, only silence. The message was clear. Humanity had won, and the galaxy would never forget it. The ruins of the Galactic Senate still smoldered, its once proud halls reduced to rubble. Smoke curled into the sky, carrying the last remnants of a regime that had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist. The people of Velthar Prime, the bureaucrats, the scholars, the civilians, stood in stunned silence, watching as the banners of the old order were torn down and cast into the wind. Above, the Terran fleet loomed, a reminder that this was not just a victory. It was a declaration. Humanity had returned. Admiral Evelyn Rains stood at the steps of the shattered hall, her gaze sweeping over the broken remnants of the Senate. The once mighty rulers of the galaxy now knelt before her, their arrogance shattered. Some cowered in fear, others trembled in rage, but none dared to defy her. Behind her, a squad of Terran soldiers dragged High Chancellor Vorin to his knees. His once grand robes were torn, his face bloodied, but his eyes still burned with defiance. "You think this is the end?" he snarled, spitting onto the ground. "You think the galaxy will accept you as its new rulers?" Rains knelt beside him, her voice quiet but dangerous. "We're not here to rule." Vorin sneered. "Then what are you here for?" She stood, looking over the ruined city. "To make sure monsters like you never rule again." At that moment, a voice crackled through her comms. "Admiral, you need to see this. We've intercepted a distress signal. Priority 1 encryption. It's not from the Senate's forces." Rains frowned, tapping her earpiece. "Who is it from?" There was a pause. Then, "It's from the Outer Rim. A message sent in ancient human code. Rain's blood ran cold. The outer rim, that was the last place humanity had been seen before the Senate erased them from history. She turned to her officers. Patch it through. A burst of static filled the air. Then a voice. Ragged, weak, but unmistakably human. This is... The transmission crackled, breaking up. This is Commander Darius Kane of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. If anyone, any humans, are still out there, we are alive. We are trapped. And we need help. The line went dead. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then Rains turned to her officers, her voice firm. Trace the signal. Set a course. She looked up at the sky, where the fleet waited. The war was over. But humanity's true battle had just begun. The bridge of the TSS Resolute was silent, save for the steady hum of its systems. Admiral Evelyn Rains stood at the central console, her eyes locked on the flickering distress signal displayed on the holoscreen. The signal had been looping for hours, repeating the same desperate plea. This is Commander Darius Kane of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. If anyone, any humans, are still out there, we are alive. We are trapped. And we need help. The words gnawed at her. For centuries, humanity had been a ghost, a whispered legend in the dark corners of the galaxy. And yet here was proof they had never been truly gone. Location? Rains asked, her voice steady. Commander Vex, her tactical officer, frowned. It originated from deep in the outer rim. A system designated Theta 972, uncharted territory. No records of settlements, no known civilizations, just empty space. Rains narrowed her eyes. Then how the hell did humans survive there? Silence settled over the bridge as officers exchanged uneasy glances. No one had an answer. Finally, Captain Anders spoke. Ma'am, we're receiving new data. The signal wasn't just a message. He turned, his expression grim. It carried battle telemetry. Rains stepped forward. What kind of battle? Anders tapped a command into his console, and the holoscreen changed. The grainy footage showed massive wreckage fields drifting through space. Twisted hulls, shattered warships, bodies frozen in the void. But these weren't council ships. These were human ships. Rain's stomach tightened. This was more than a distress call. This was a warning. She turned to her crew. Prepare the fleet. We're going to Theta 972. Vex hesitated. Admiral, if this is a trap, then we spring it, she said coldly. The officers nodded and rushed to their stations. The engines roared to life, and the Resolute, along with its escort fleet, turned toward the unknown. As they left the ruins of the Senate behind, Rains couldn't shake the feeling in her gut. Humanity had spent centuries as a forgotten memory. Now they had returned, but someone had never stopped hunting them.